welcome to Monday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic. And today we've got a puzzle by Pulverizing Pancake, a brilliant setter and also a brilliant solver. Pulverizing Pancake does a lot of the test solving over on our Discord server and is clearly some sort of genius. This one is called Brutalism. Which sounds daunting, I will admit. And it has an interesting history. Pulverizing Pancake sent this to us in an email that said that it's the puzzle that he might be the most proud of all of those he's created. And it's been on Logic Masters Germany for a while, but the rating on Logic Masters Germany, while not being bad at all, is around 86-87%, which, you know, for a puzzle that somebody of the quality of Pulverizing Pancake, you know, when they think it's their best puzzle, that is surprising. But we've come across this a few times on the channel where, for some reason, absolutely brilliant puzzles have not achieved great ratings on sites like Logic Masters Germany. We do not know why, but our testers have looked at this and they say this is a work of genius, so we ought to be in for an absolute treat. Before we kick off, just a quick mention, there is so much stuff going on Patreon at the moment. If you haven't tried Jovial's Hunt, do that. If you haven't looked at the Murder Mystery Hunt, that is going to be it's either out or coming out very soon, I think. And what else can I tell you? Well, there's even a StarCraft video of me playing StarCraft, if you're into that sort of thing. Anyway, with all that said, let's get to the rules of this one, and I'll read them out to you. So we've got normal Sudoku rules apply. In cages, digits must sum to the small clue in the top left corner of the cage, if given. If given. There must be one that is not given. That one. Okay, so that one doesn't have a cage total. Digits cannot repeat within a cage, so the point of this cage is simply telling us that we can't have a repeat in that cage. Each main diagonal marked in blue cannot contain a repeated digit, so this is like a Sudoku X if you've ever come across this version. We just need to make sure that on this diagonal all of the digits 1 to 9 appear once each, and the same obviously on the other diagonal. So do have a go. The way to play is to click the link under the video as usual. Now I get to play. Let's get cracking. Let's get cracking and see what we can see. So, I mean, an 8 cage in 3 cells has got to contain a 1. Let's put that in. Almost looks Fistamafel ring-like to me, this, with these almost 2x2 cages in the corner. But it could be, you know, it actually could be Fistamafel related. So if you've not come across Fistamafel before, this is the theorem invented by the setter Fistamafel that basically says that those blue squares there have to contain exactly the same digits as the purple squares. So there are 16 purple squares, there are 16 blue squares. They actually contain the identical digits, but I'm not sure it's that. Let me just see if I can. I don't think, well, if it is that, it's not that yet. There's too many gaps. There's too many gaps on sort of both sides of the equation. No, okay, let's have a look at something else. We can use the secret perhaps. So, if you're not familiar with the secret, where have you been? The secret of Killer Sudoku is that any box of a Killer Sudoku, indeed any row, any column, and in this puzzle, any main diagonal, must contain all of the digits 1 to 9, and if you add those digits up, you get 45. So in this case, in this box, if all of those squares add to 45, and they add to 40, that's interesting straight away, because that means those little squares there have to add up to 5. No, I thought it was interesting. Maybe it's not. Let's label them 1, 2, 3, and 4. So these squares have got to be 6, 7s, 8s, and 9s. Actually, we've got. This could be interesting. Hang on a moment. I'm now noticing I've got symmetrical 10 cages going around the grid. What do these add up to? 40 as well. Oh, I see. Right, got it. Got it. These squares have got to be 6, 7, 8, 9 as well, therefore, and the point is these all see each other through the mechanism of madness. Well, not really madness, but through the mechanism of the diagonals. Let's look at this square, for example. Let's label it purple. Now this purple sees this square in its column, this square in its row, and this square on its diagonal. So none of these can be purple. And of course the logic works symmetrically. So when you get to this one will have to be different to these three. This one will have to be different to the other three, and this one will have to be different to the other three. So in fact, this is a 6, 7, 8, 9 quadruple. And I'm pausing because I don't know what this means. I'm sure it means something very important. I mean, I can see it means this square, the central square now, cannot be a 6, 7, 8 or 9 because it sees every colour. So, what does that mean? Sorry, I'm not actually saying what that means at all. This must be important. This is so beautifully set up that... I don't know, by the way, how hard this puzzle is. I forgot to look at that. I could have looked on Logic Masters Germany at how many stars out of 5 it had been given. So this could be very hard. Okay, another thing we can think about here, which probably I should have spotted immediately, is that because all of these squares are different, of course that means all of those squares are different as well. So this, not only is this a 6, 7, 8, 9 quadruple, but the implication of that, the corollary of that, is that these are a 1, 2, 3, 4 quadruple. So maybe we've got to colour those in as well, in different colours. I'm probably going to run out of colours. No, I can probably get away with... Well, people don't like me using black, but no, okay, I can see why. I'll do light grey. So, what does that mean? We've almost got quite a lot of real estate in this column. Those squares add to 24, so the rest of the column has got to add up to 21 in order to make the total of 45 work. Which means that these two squares at the bottom are going to have to be quite high. I mean, if this was 4 and this was 3, that would mean these squares would still have to add up to 14. Which is relatively high, although one of them is in a 15 cage. 27 in those 4 cells, so there must be a 9 in those 4 cells, because 8, 7, 6 and 5 only add up to 26. Doesn't have to be a 9 in a 20 cage. Okay, the 7 cage here. This is a very minor point, but the 7 cage cannot be a 3-4 cage. There you go. That's a small deduction because, and the reason it can't be a 3-4 cage is that these two squares would then be a 1-2 pair, and they would not add up to 5. So this is either 1-6 or 2-5. So there's a... So 1 and 2 are used in this box between those 4 squares, and we know that because there must be a 1 or 2 in these 2 cells, because we know these 2 cells add to 5, so it's either 1 and 4 or 2 and 3, and we know there must be a 1 or a 2 in the 7 cage. But the problem is the rest of these cages are too big for that to matter. So, what does that mean? If this was a 1 in those 2 squares, this would be a 2-3 pair. So this would be a 1. Oh, good grief, they're the same. Oh my goodness, right. Of course. Oh, good, my brain is slow. Right, so the point here is that actually, although we're using grey, and I can hardly see grey, it's not the greatest thing in the world, but whatever goes in this cage here, whether it's a 1 or whether it's a 2, it sees this one, and this one of the 1, 2, 3, 4 quadruple. So it must repeat here. Which means this square is not a 3 or a 4. Okay. This means that's not a 6 or a 7 anymore, because these have to add to 10. Now this one, we know these two add up to 10, so this is not a 1 or a 2. So this is not an 8 or a 9. And now we can bounce. No, we can't. No, we can't. I was about to say, I felt like there was an interaction between these two digits, but that might be completely erroneous. Why did my instinct come to this square? I mean, I know one of those squares is now grey. So whatever... Ooh, how about that though? How about this? Yes, I think there's something going on with the 19 cage because there is an 8 or a 9 already in the column. Now, one thing I know about a 3-cell 19 cage is that you can't make it up without using an 8 or a 9, or both. And that's because 7 plus 6 plus 5 is only 18. So whatever this is, let's say this is 9, the 8 would then have to go in here. In other words, this cell is not 8 or 9. There is a virtual 8-9 pair in those 4 squares in the column. So that means this square is either 3 or 4. And that means this square is either 1 or 2. And that was what I thought was going to happen. I thought these two were going to have to add up to 5. Why did I think that? Was it something to do with this column? This was 24. These were 21. No, I'm not sure why I thought it. But anyway, well, we've done it a different way. If there is a quick bit of logic proving that this is a 1 or 2, apologies. But anyway, I've managed to prove it a different way, if indeed that is what is intended. Now this square is now not 6 or 7, so that's 8 or 9. So we've now got an 8-9 pair on this diagonal and a 6-7 pair on that diagonal. And I mean, I have to say, already this is a beautiful puzzle. Already, I don't know how much more there is, but I would be giving this top marks. It's incredibly interesting. It is incredibly interesting. There's no 9 in here. There is no 9 in there. There's a 9 in here. Why is there no 9 in here? Well, because this cage sees a 3-4 pair through the medium of Sudoku. These two are obviously different digits because they're different colours. This 12 cage sees both, so it cannot be a 3-9 or a 4-8 cage. So it's got to be a 5-7 cage. That means this 15 cage has got to be a 6-9 cage, because it can't be a 7-8 cage. And that means 8 must go in the 13 cage. Now, a 22 cage in 3 cells is either 5-8-9 or 6-7-9. So whichever digit, whichever version of the 22 cage this is, the 5 or the 7 will have to go in that square because of this domino here. So now what do we do? I don't know. 8-9 in the 20 cage. You now can't put both 8 and 9 in here. You can't put red in there at all. Oh, so there is green in there. Is that the point? Yeah, the 20 cage is even more constrained than the 19 cage was. So this 20 cage is interesting. So it can't have this digit in, it cannot have red in it. and it can't be made up of anything like 765. It's not big enough, so it must have green in it, and the green is not there, so that's green. And that means, well, we don't know. I'm not sure we do know what that means, do we? Oh, yeah, we know green is in there as well. Hang on. So we know green is in one. Well, in fact, we know green now is in the unnumbered cage at the top. Oh, come on. What else do we know? Do we know anything about this 17 cage? I don't think we do. We know there's a 5 or a 6 used up in these. Oh, hang on. So the 11 cage is not a 5/6 cage. Don't think that matters. The 22 cage needs a 9 in it, and that 9 must be in this domino because it cannot be in this cell. So the 11 cage is not 5/6, it's not 2/9, so this is 3/8 or 4/7, which forms a virtual 3/4 pair in the box, but we already knew that because you can't put 3 or 4 in the 22 cage. Can we figure out the 8 cage now? No. We know things about 6s and 7s, but there was never a 6 or a 7 in the 8 cage. This is the 20 cage. We now know if this was 8, these two would have to be 5s and 7s, which they could. Oh, they could probably be. I can't see immediately why that's impossible. If this is 9, I think it's easier though. Then we would have the option of either 4/7 or 5/6 on that diagonal. Okay. I'm starting to understand why this is called brutalism. It's definitely not easy. Can I get this digit somehow? Is there some trick we can do to get this digit? The answer is, I don't know. Do we know what the 19 cage is then? If it's got green in it, the answer is no, we definitely don't. Does it have to have purple in it? That's an interesting question. So if this was 9 in here, the other two squares would have to add up to 10. So there would need to be a 6 or a 7 in it, and it would have to be that colour. If this had 8 in it, they'd have to add up to 11. They still need a high digit. So yeah, there is purple in there, I think, which is quite interesting. So now we've got a virtual 5 of these squares. Well, there are 5 squares highlighted, and 4 of them are 6, 7, 8, and 9, but we just don't really know where they go in the middle bit. Okay, so what on earth do we look for now? I don't know. Do we know something about this 6-9 pair at the bottom? Or the 13 cage? I just don't. I'm sure I'm missing lots of obvious things and people are shouting at me, but I can't see how to do it. And for that, I apologise. Got grey here and grey here, so one of these squares is grey, but I don't think that's terribly important. We've got dark grey here. Oh, okay, so dark grey is different from yellow, so there is dark grey in the 13 cage. So this is an 8, and we know that, right, so we actually know there's got to be this colour in the 13 cage as well, don't we? Yeah, we do. So that domino contains orange. So there's an orange over here. I So whatever is in... So actually, let's think about these three squares now, because whatever this digit is has to appear in the 17 cage, look. Which might be interesting. So there's definitely a 5 or a 7 in the 17 cage. Possibly there could be both. No, there can't be both. That's interesting. They can't be both because if it was 5 plus 7 plus another 5, you'd repeat the 5. So there is one digit from 5 and 7 in here. Ah, does that tell me the 11 cage? It does, doesn't it? Please let that tell me the 11 cage. If the 11 cage was 4, 7, so now look what happens. This is now 5, 8, 9. The 5 has to go here. The 7 is here. There is a 5 and a 7 in the 17 cage, which is impossible because you can't put double 5, 7 in the 17 cage. So this is not 4, 7. That's 3, 8, which gives me an 8. Is that my first digit? Yes, it is. I am proud of that. That's not an easy digit to win. And in fact, this is very, very nice, isn't it? Because now we get a 4 here, and a 1 here, and a 9 here, and an 8 here, and a 9 here, and a 6 here, and a 7 here. I think all of those things are true. That must be 3, and that must be 2. That is beautiful. So this is now a 1, 4 pair. There's now a 4 by Sudoku. There's a 4 in the 17 cage. So we need... So it's now 4, 5, 8... no, hang on. I'm doing my maths wrong. It's 4, 6, 7, isn't it? Because it's got 4 in it, so the other two digits are adding to 13. They can't be 4, 9, or you double the 4 in the cage. They can't be 5, 8. So this has got 4, 6, 7 in it. Let's get rid of the pencil marked 4. There's no 4 in the central position now. There's no 3 in it, actually, because we've got the 3, 8 pair there. There's no 1 in it. So this is now 2 or 5. But we know this digit, don't we? Because we now... know the composition of this. Because there's no 8 in here. So this must be a 7. And this must be a 6, 9 pair. And that means this is not 1, 6. This has become 2, 5. This is a 9 at the bottom. Suddenly we are actually getting some traction here. Now, I still can't do the middle bit, look. I need 2, 5, and 9 into those squares. 2, 5, 9. These squares must be 1, 3, 8. And this 8 is on the diagonal, so we can get rid of that. That 7 is on the diagonal. Oh, 7 and 6 are on this diagonal, so we actually get a 4 in the middle box. Okay, good. There we go. So we've actually done some work. We've got a lot more done in the Fistmafell ring as well. So we've got to bear that in mind. Now we need 11 more in my 20 cage down here. So we're either looking for 4, 7 or 5, 6. And we can get rid of 6 from that one and 5 from this one, therefore. Which is... Oh, it's so close to forming a triple. Okay. Not quite seeing how to do that. 9 has to be in this domino by Sudoku, of all things. Who'd have thought we'd be doing any of that? 8 just gets placed in box 7. You can't put 8 in an 8 cage, so it's got to go there. Ooh, 9, 7 and 8 all looking at this box. I suppose that's not impossible, is it? No, it's far from impossible. Okay. Do we know what this 8 cage is? Can we use the Fistmafell ring to tell us? Because obviously whatever's in here, if I'm going to start using Fistmafell, I do realise I'm going to have to prove Fistmafell, aren't I? Let me Oh, am I going to use Fistamafel? That's the decision. This is the decision. And the problem with this is I don't know whether I'm going to need to use Fistamafel. Let me just try and... can I work this out? Like, if... the problem is I don't think I can. I think there's too much... I think there's too much flexibility still. All of these 3 squares are unknown. And all of these 4 squares are unknown. And that's still the case. So even though I do know a lot more about the composition of the ring, I don't think it matters. It's probably famous last words. How long have I had? 25 minutes, not too bad. So, now, I must know the composition of this 19 cage now, don't I? Because I know it's got 16 in it. So this is 3, 7 and 9. And there's a 9 in here, because 9 is the green number. And this is 3, 7 and 9. So I've now got, well, I've got at least 2 3s, at least 2 7s, and at least 2 9s on the Fistamafel ring. So if I had... no, in fact, I can only ever have 2 9s on it, because you can't put another 9 there. So there are 2 9s in the Fistamafel ring, and I know where they go. So there are no 9s, and we knew this already. We already knew there were no 9s in those squares. So that's complete bobbins. Can we do anything else with that? I keep thinking I'm going to be able to use it to prove the composition of the 8 cage, but I can see there's a 1 in the Fistamafel ring. That can absolutely live in here. But there's still 2s, 3s and 4s on it, so this could, I think, be 1, 2, 5 or 1, 3, 4 with no problem at all. Although if it was 1, 2, 5, you'd have to put a 5 in there, because you haven't got a 5 on the ring. So if that's 1, 2, 5, you've got a 5 in here. Why does that matter? Is there anything wrong with that? I don't know. I'm so sorry, I don't know. Right. Here is something absolutely marvellous. I think this is right. Hang on, I am just about to prove something absolutely marvellous. I've got tears in my eyes. Oh, good grief. Now, hang on a minute. Oh, no, I might be wrong. No, I'm not wrong. I'm not wrong. It's absolutely right. I'm doing Fistamafel. I am doing Fistamafel. Right, hang on. I am going to try and duplicate this tab. I hope this doesn't go wrong. Duplicate the tab. So now I should be able to restart the puzzle. I'm not going to restart the puzzle. I'm only going to do it for the purposes of doing the Fistamafel trick. So I'm now going to prove this relationship between these squares here and these squares here. I know that many of you will have seen this before, and I apologise if you've seen it before and are very overly familiar with it, but we always try and cater for new viewers who may not know the background to this astonishing thing, which is true for any Sudoku. The blue squares contain the exact digits that appear in the purples. How do we know that this is true? Well, the way to prove it is actually to consider the boxes around the edge. So these boxes quite clearly contain 4 sets of the digits 1 to 9. I think we'd all agree that that must be true. Now, what about those rows? they clearly contain 2 sets of the digits 1 to 9. Now, if I then include these 2 columns, the complete column would also contain 2 sets of the digits 1 to 9. So, I've now highlighted, I've highlighted 4 sets of the digits 1 to 9 in purple and 4 sets of the digits 1 to 9 in blue. But remember, in blue, this square, this square, this square, and this square have been double counted because I included them in that and I included them in this. So it should be fairly clear, hopefully, that I'm just going to ignore these for the time being and make those black because they will otherwise be confusing. But any other cell that has both colours in it, I could remove from both sides of the equation because we know that the purples and the blues were exactly the same digits because they both contained 4 sets of the digits 1 to 9. So if I was to remove whatever digit appears in this square from the left-hand side of the equation, from the purples, you can see that because it's in the blues as well, it will disappear from the right-hand side of the equation and we will still have equality between the purples and the blues. So we can do that for all of these squares, of course. That logic would automatically hold. And we get to this point. And now the key point is I can't delete this square from both sides because this square was counted twice in the blues. So I can only remove it because it was counted twice in the blues. It needs to now basically turn blue because it was purple originally and twice blue. So I can cancel one of those blues but not both of them. So those become blue, and QED, we've proved the Fistemafell ring. Now let's come back to here and see why this is lovely. And I think that this is just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful idea. So the question is, what happens if that's a 2? What happens if this is a 2? And the answer is now, by Fistemafell, the puzzle is broken because of the diagonals. Because on the diagonals, on these squares, I've not put any 5s in. So that means there's going to have to be a 5 in one of those positions on this diagonal. And note that that 5 will be in the Fistemafell 2x2s. And I'm going to have to put a 5 on this diagonal. And that 5 will be in the 2x2s. In other words, I need to put 2 5s on the Fistemafell ring, and I can only put 1. It's impossible to find a home for the second one. I can't put 2 there. That won't work. So this, by Fistemafell, this is not a 2. It's a 5. And that is just absolutely beautiful. How can anybody solving this not just be absolutely falling over in admiration? That is just genius. It's genius. Now, it might be genius, but I haven't finished the puzzle with that knowledge, have I? Because is this 5, which is a very hard one indeed, actually giving me more than just itself? Yes, it is. It's giving me stuff down here, look. That's not a 5, so that's not a 6 because they had to add up to 11. So this has become a 4-7 pair, which is gorgeous because that means that's a 6. So I do get more from the 5 in the middle. I now get a 6-7 pair. I can get 7 out of that one. This diagonal is now quite cluttered, isn't it? In fact, look, we've got 1s, 2s and 3s to play. Oh, yeah, we've got 1s, 2s and 3s to place. 2 must be in one of those squares. Well, what digit cannot accompany it in a 13 cage? 1. 1 plus 2 is only 3. I can't put 10 in there. So there's no 1 in those. That means this is a 1. This is a 2-3 pair, so this is an 8. 8 is disambiguating this. 3 is bouncing back over here. 2 is bouncing in here. Keep going, keep going. 3 is nearly very I want to be able to force this 8 cage somehow. I've got 4, 5 on the diagonal. That's a bit interesting, because an 8 cage must have a 4 or a 5 in it, so that square must be a 4 or a 5. And there's a 4, 5, 7 triple in the bottom row now. So the 1s, 2s and the 3s. This is quite interesting as well, because that's now a 1 or a 2. This is a 1 or a 2 because it can't be 3, so 3 must go there. So 3 is over here. 3 is there by Sudoku. Now, let me just think about this. So 3 is in one of these 2 cells. So if this is... no, I don't know. If that's 2, that's got to be 5, that's got to be 1, and that probably works. 2, we can place 2 in box 3. And that's it. I finally understood what goes in my 8 gauge, because I've got a 2 here and a 2 off the diagonal in the central box. I've got to put 2 on this diagonal. So it's got to go in the 8 cage, which tells us the 8 cage is 1, 2, 5. So this digit gets resolved. That means that's a 5, that's a 7, that's a 7, that's a 4. This is now 1, 2 pair, so 3 gets resolved. The 2 disambiguates the 2 and the 1. This disambiguates the 1 and the 4. That gives me a 1 over here. Come on, we've just got a bit more to tidy up now, I think. We've got 4s, 6s and 9s, so that's a naked single. This is a 4, 9 pair. This square's a naked single, obviously. That's got to be a 2. That looks okay. Those 2 squares are 5 and 6. We don't know the order. 3, 7, 9. No. We can't do anything more with that. 3, 8. Have we got more? We've got so much on this diagonal. We need 3s, 8s and 9s into... 3. 3, yes. 3 goes here. So that's 3. That's 8. And now we just need 8s and 9s there, which means the 9 is here, the 8 is here. The 9 fixes the 9 and the 6. The 6 goes in one of those squares. These 2 squares now are 5 and 7, which we can do. Yes, we can do. 5 and 7 go in. These squares are 1, 4 and 6. Now, we can probably do those. I can't see immediately how to. No. Okay, so let's try this row where we've got a lot of real estate banked. Look, we need 1s, 4s and 7s. Well, that's going to be a 4. See 7 and 1, which fixes this. Get rid of the 6 pencil mark before it annoys us. Place the 7 in the row. These 2 squares are 1 and 5, which we can get the 1. That's the 5. So this 1... So this cage, in fact, the unnumbered cage added up to 18. I wonder why the decision was not to give that cage. It must have given some insight that would have spoiled some of the logic. I always like thinking about things like that. Anyway, this is no longer a 3 because of the 3 here. Now this is really interesting as well. You can see this 12 and this 10 cage presumably have been given to disambiguate this final piece of the jigsaw. Now this can't be 1, 9 or 4, 6. So this is 3, 7, which would have to be this way round, or 2, 8, which it cannot be because you can't put a 2 in it. So this is 7, this is 3, which means that's become a 9 out of nowhere. 9, 3 and 7 go in, 9 and 2 go in the middle. This cage can still be 4, 8, thank goodness. 8 and 4 can go in, 4 and 9 can go in, 4 and 6 can go in. These squares must include, well, in fact, let's look at those. We need 2, 5, and 6. So, that's surprising. I don't know if we can do that. 6, 5, and 2 come out. These squares have got to be a 1, 4 pair, which we can do. 4 lives here by Sudoku. No, I don't like this. I've made a mistake, haven't I? This doesn't... I've got too many 4s. Hang on. That digit was nonsense. I've got too many 4s in here as well. Oh, when I put the 1 and the 4 in, that was complete bobbins, was it? Yes, it was. I need to put a 9 in here. Okay, so let's actually put the 1 and the 9 in, and hopefully that will not go wrong. There's a 1 here. This now can be a 2 or a 5, and it's fixed. So that gets those sorted out. These squares here have got to be a 6, 8 pair, which we can do. 8 goes here, 6 goes here. That does fix the 6 and the 5, and these are a 2 and a 4. And I think that's the finished puzzle. Yes, wow, that's sensational. That is a sensational Sudoku. The logic in, I mean, yeah. Well, I would give that, what would I give it? I'd probably give it 4 stars out of 5 for difficulty. And I would give it the top mark you can give it for, like, entertainment and brilliance, because it is utterly brilliant. If that step is necessary on the Fistemafell ring, i.e. seeing that this is not a 2 because you can't put more than 1 5 on the ring, that is one of the great steps that we've ever featured on Cracking the Cryptic. It's so clever, I cannot tell you. To design that in a puzzle, pulverizing pancake, take a bow. This is an absolute gem. Loved it, absolutely loved it. I loved it from the start, where you can work out that these all have to be different. Then that sort of led to the conclusion that the inner ring of 1s, 2s, 3s and 4s had to be different. I can't quite remember what I did after that. I think I did some stuff with the 7 cage, but I can't remember if it was important. And literally you could see how every cage had been selected in value. Yes, it was important. This was important, wasn't it? Because I knew this had to be a high digit, and then I knew there had to be a high digit in there, and that forced that to be a relatively low digit within the 6, 7, 8, 9 quadruple. And slowly you could whittle away at it. It's just brilliant. Blown away. Thank you so much for watching. Do drop a comment and let us know how you got on with the puzzle. I really hope you enjoyed it, and we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.